There is a product sitting inside nearly every restaurant, hospital, hotel, and convenience store in the world right now. It requires no branding. It has no flavor. It costs almost nothing to make. And yet it generates over $5 billion in revenue every single year. That product is ice. Not the ice from your freezer at home. Something far more organized, far more deliberate, and far more profitable. Somewhere inside this industry is a detail that most people walk past every single day without noticing. A clue hidden in plain sight inside every gas station cooler, every hotel ice machine, every stadium drink. Something about the way ice is actually made and sold that reveals a business model, so quietly efficient it borders on genius. The explanation is coming. But first, follow the ice. Think about the last time you ordered a drink at a restaurant. The glass arrived cold, full of perfectly shaped cubes, clear as glass, without any thought from you about where they came from. You did not ask. Nobody does. Ice is simply there. It appears at the breakfast buffet, keeping fruit platters chilled. It fills the coolers at convenience stores along every highway. It lines the displays at fish markets and seafood counters. It circulates through hospital cooling systems and laboratory storage units. Stadiums order it by the ton. Concert venues plan their entire beverage logistics around it. Hotels budget for it the same way they budget for linens and electricity. Ice is infrastructure. It is as essential to the modern hospitality industry as running water, and yet almost nobody thinks of it that way. This invisibility is exactly what makes the ice business so extraordinary. Because behind that seamless, effortless appearance is a supply chain of remarkable scale and precision. One that most consumers have never considered and most businesses take entirely for granted. Now return to the clue from a moment ago. The one hiding inside every gas station cooler and stadium cup. Commercial ice is almost never made where it is consumed. It travels. Sometimes hundreds of miles. In insulated trucks on carefully planned routes, delivered on schedules tighter than most people's morning commutes. And somewhere in that distance between production and consumption, an entire industry quietly operates. The question is, who is running it, and why does the distance matter so much? The first thing to understand about commercial ice is that it bears almost no resemblance to what comes out of a home freezer. Home ice is cloudy, irregular, and full of trapped air bubbles. Commercial ice is engineered. Different shapes serve different purposes. Half cubes melt faster and pack tighter in beverage cups. Full cubes last longer in cocktails. Nugget ice absorbs liquid quickly and is preferred in healthcare settings. Flake ice keeps seafood and produce fresh without bruising. Each shape is the product of a specific machine, running a specific process, calibrated to precise temperatures and cycle times. Large-scale ice production facilities run continuously, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because the demand for ice does not pause. Restaurants need ice before their first customer walks through the door. Hotels need it stocked before guests wake up. Hospitals need it available before any scheduled procedure. The supply cannot interrupt. This creates a logistics challenge that most businesses are simply not equipped to handle on their own. Consider what it would take for a single mid-sized restaurant to produce its own commercial ice independently. The equipment investment alone runs into tens of thousands of dollars. Maintenance, water filtration, energy consumption, storage capacity. The operational complexity adds up quickly. And yet that restaurant needs ice every single day. Reliably, without variation. The solution most businesses arrived at was not to make ice themselves. It was to buy it from someone else. Someone who had already solved the production problem. Someone who had already built the storage. Someone who had already designed the distribution routes. This is where the commercial ice industry found its permanent foothold. Not in novelty, but in necessity. And that foothold turns out to be worth billions. The companies that supply commercial ice operate at a scale that would surprise most people who have never thought about them. Ready Ice, Arctic Glacier, Home City Ice. These are not household names. But they supply hundreds of thousands of retail and food service locations across North America alone. Their operations begin in large production facilities where filtered water runs through industrial refrigeration systems, producing standardized ice in controlled conditions. The finished product is bagged, sealed, labeled, and moved into massive cold storage warehouses, where it waits for dispatch. The distribution network runs like a precision clock. Refrigerated trucks depart on fixed routes, delivering to gas stations, grocery stores, restaurants, bars, and event venues on scheduled intervals. Drivers do not simply drop off bags at a loading dock. They restock in-store freezer units, rotate inventory, check storage temperatures, and report conditions back to logistics coordinators. This is a full-service supply chain wrapped around a product made entirely of frozen water. The grocery store segment alone is enormous. Walk into any supermarket and locate the ice freezer near the entrance or at the checkout area. That unit is almost certainly stocked and maintained by a third-party ice supplier. The store does not own the ice. It sells it on consignment or through a supply agreement, earning a margin while the ice company handles everything else. It is a retail model almost identical to how beverage distributors operate. The supplier owns the supply chain, and the retailer provides the shelf space. This arrangement has allowed ice companies to expand their footprints rapidly without requiring massive retail investment. But it has also created something even more interesting. It created a market where the barrier to competition is deceptively high, because producing consistent, clean, commercial-grade ice at scale is harder than it looks. And the companies that mastered it early built moats that are difficult to cross. How large is this industry really? The global commercial ice market was valued at approximately $4.5 billion in recent years, and is projected to grow steadily through the next decade. In the United States alone, commercial ice production exceeds 10 billion pounds annually. That is not a misprint. 10 billion pounds of frozen water, manufactured, packaged, transported, and sold every year in one country. The healthcare sector accounts for a significant portion of that demand. Ice plays a critical role in patient care, laboratory testing, pharmaceutical storage, and surgical environments. The food service industry accounts for another major share, with restaurants, bars, and catering operations depending on consistent daily deliveries. The retail segment, those bags in gas station and grocery store coolers, represents a multi-billion-dollar channel on its own. Event production is another significant driver. A single large outdoor music festival can consume thousands of pounds of ice in a weekend. Professional sports venues plan ice procurement the same way they plan staffing. Major hospitality brands like hotel chains negotiate national supply agreements with ice distributors, locking in pricing and delivery terms across hundreds of properties simultaneously. These contracts represent stable, recurring revenue that makes ice distribution one of the more reliable businesses in the food supply chain. Compare this to other commodity businesses. Water itself, packaged and sold as bottled water, generates enormous revenue, but ice delivers higher margins at the point of sale. A 5-pound bag of ice at a gas station retails for $2 to $3. The cost of production is a fraction of that figure. The markup is significant, and the product is purchased impulsively, in moments of immediate need, with almost no price sensitivity from the consumer. That combination, necessity, impulse, low production cost, high perceived urgency, is the foundation of a remarkably resilient business model. Return now to that gas station cooler. Stand in front of it for a moment. Look at the bags of ice stacked inside. Most people glance at it and move on. But there is something about this specific location, this specific point of sale, that does not quite match the rest of the store's inventory. Every other product in that gas station was delivered on a standard retail schedule. Snacks, drinks, and newspapers arrived in trucks and were unloaded by store employees. But that ice cooler. In many cases, the store employee never touched those bags. They arrived pre-stocked. They sit in a unit that the store does not own. And when the bags run low, a driver from the ice company will return to refill it. Not because the store placed an order, but because the route runs on a fixed schedule regardless of whether the store called. This is the detail that rewards closer examination. The ice company is not simply a supplier. It is managing its own inventory inside someone else's store. It controls the cooler. It controls the stocking level. It controls the presentation. The retailer is essentially lending floor space to an ice company's distribution node. And that model, owning the point of sale without owning the retail location, is strikingly unusual in consumer goods. Why would ice companies invest so heavily in this arrangement? Why does controlling the cooler matter so much? The answer connects directly back to every clue laid out in this story. And it reveals something about the ice business that changes how the entire industry looks. Here is the full picture. Ice companies do not just sell ice. They sell guaranteed access to the consumer at the exact moment the consumer needs ice most. By owning the cooler units inside retail locations, ice companies eliminate competition at the point of purchase. A rival brand cannot simply place its bags next to theirs. There is no space. The cooler belongs to one supplier. This is a distribution moat built out of freezer real estate. It mirrors a strategy used by beverage giants for decades. Coca-Cola placing its own refrigerators in small shops so that competitor products cannot occupy the same cold space. Ice companies replicated this model and applied it to a product with almost universal demand and zero brand loyalty from consumers. Nobody asks which brand of ice their drink contains. They just need ice. And the company that owns the cooler nearest to the consumer at the moment of need wins the sale every time. That is the secret. The product is secondary. The infrastructure is the business. Producing ice well matters. But owning the last 10 feet between the product and the consumer is what generates sustained, scalable profit. Every bag sold from a company-owned cooler inside a third-party store is a sale the ice company controlled from production through to purchase, without ever owning a single retail location. That is the hidden business behind ice cubes. So the next time you reach into a gas station cooler, or watch a bartender scoop ice into your glass, or pass a hotel ice machine in a quiet hallway, consider what you now know. That ice did not simply appear. It traveled through a supply chain built over decades, managed by companies most people have never heard of, delivered on routes planned with the precision of a logistics operation, and sold from infrastructure that those same companies quietly own inside stores that belong to someone else. Something as ordinary as frozen water became the foundation of a multi-billion-dollar industry. Not because water is rare, but because convenience, consistency, and control are always valuable. And the businesses that understood that earliest built empires out of something that melts in your hand. What else are you walking past every day without noticing?